Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the Starlight Haven. I just want to make sure I wasn't live streaming this information. I am actually going to start a little documentation process because it is mostly for me so I can look back on my journey and rewatch these and really honor myself in a new way because I feel like, I'll get into it. Okay, so trigger warning first and foremost that this video and this series in general topic that's triggering for a lot of people is my journey with anorexia, with an eating disorder. It's going to primarily be looked at from the perspective of my spiritual journey because I am going through a journey of remembering what it is to truly be a human being, to be in true connection with the body and the spirit in unison, to be in union in that way. So a lot of this will be a documentation for that experience that I am going through currently. And some people, if you are finding this video because you are also on your recovery journey, great. If this is something that you would be interested in watching, even better, because I know some people don't really resonate with the spiritual aspects of what we go through. Maybe our experiences are entirely different, and that's totally okay too. But it is something that I wanted to start to document because it's something I've been struggling with for a really long time. And even having been on my quote unquote awakening journey since 2020, this is something that I feel like has really been locked in, and it's been a really hard thing for me to really process and move through and heal. So it is something that I feel like is really big and really important for me, and I think it's multifaceted. So yeah, I'm going to start documenting it. You're welcome to join with me. You're welcome to start a conversation with me. The one thing that I have learned from this process is that us as humans coming together and connecting and being in community with one another is truly healing. And so, yeah, anyone who's on their journey too, um, please come come along with me and you know and see what this is about. So, I'll do a little background information. Just a disclaimer, I won't be sharing photos of my body in my journey. That's super sacred to me and for me only. I won't be showing photos of myself at any capacity from even when my disorder was at its worst. I don't think it's necessary to document this, and it's just, I don't think it would be something that would benefit me at all. And you either, right? So, yeah, those things, those intimate things will not be shared, but I will talk about the way I got to where I am now in briefly, a brief segment. I had started my eating disorder from what I remember when I was 9 years old, and that was early puberty. That was my body developing pretty early. I was not ready to have the body of a woman at the age of 9. Also, other things that were happening in my reality that were kind of, if you could say, like presenting themselves to me as modeled to me about what the feminine body should look like. And normal, like status quo, your body should look a certain way kind of conversation growing up, but that also really affected me. I had struggled with that since I was 9 years old, and it continued on until I am now 30 and it is still going. So it's something that I have struggled with for most of my life. It had gotten to a pivotal point around 2018. That was when I really started to fall really deep into my disordered patterns. I was really restrictive with dieting. I wanted to be very skinny, even though it is not really within my body type to be that way. And so I was constantly fighting against nourishment because I wanted my body to look smaller. And I fought really hard to get it that way. It was not something that came easy to me. I had to really fight and to get it to that capacity. I was very small. I was very sick. And so in 2020, I had my awakening, which I consider the time when my human self was starting to come back to the fact that it was in a body and that we needed to love being in the body again. We need to feel safe in the body again. That way we could really experience being human to its fullest capacity and not be on autopilot. And so in 2020, I realized that I thought I was taking care of myself while I was going on the spiritual journey. I was still restricting, but I thought it was okay because I used different excuses like, it was okay. It's totally okay to be going through these moments. We have to have compassion for ourselves, right? When we go through these things, even if you realize later that it might not be what you think it was. But I was very big on eating a certain way. I think I even had a stint being vegan for a while. But yeah, I did it. I thought I was listening to my body. I didn't eat certain things. I was like, I have food allergies. I have this, that, and the other. I can't eat this because I have to integrate my light body or whatever. The stories, the things that we tell ourselves when we're going through these awakenings and when we talk about food. I was completely removing pleasure from eating, which is something that I have always done. It's like if you are discontent with pleasure in general, you will also be to some degree discontent with eating. Like it'll be hard to eat because eating should bring us pleasure. So we can deny ourselves sometimes that the simple pleasure of eating something that tastes amazing. And we can go into these modes of feeling guilty for eating those things, even if our body might be telling us like, hey, I want that. I want to experience that pleasure at this moment in time. It's what I need. Even if you feel like your physical body might not need it, your emotional body maybe needs that. And so we get this like feeling of guilt and shame for desiring certain things. And I'm speaking, of course, from my perspective of my experience. I'm saying we, but me, I would feel that way where I was like, no, I can't, because underneath it all, there's this image of what I had to look like. And so basically, I like kind of went on a roller coaster for the last 5 years where I was like up and down with my weight, in and out of dieting. And until maybe I think in July, I got tired of it. I felt imprisoned by my own like psyche of like needing to diet, of needing to lose weight, needing to this, that, or the other. And I realized this was a manifestation of the deep starvation that I was feeling on a spiritual level, that food, in essence, in a lot of ways, is spiritual. And it can be something where we're like bombarded with all of these things from outside of the world and the ways that we perceive ourselves that we can ignore um that we've been given in the form of food, of nourishment. Right? I mean, I've even dabbled in different spiritual circles where it's like, we're going to stop eating eventually. We're just going to synthesize light. And I'm like, why would I want to do, why would we want to do that? Right? It's like God gave us food on this planet to eat and to enjoy. And even if it's like, this is a hot take, but even with like junk food, because I know a lot of people are like, well, like food can heal the body, but like sometimes what we want is like that chocolate cake that has like the grain and the cocoa and the sugar and all of these things that our body wants because it tastes good and it feels good to eat that, right? But if we're in this like state of having to restrict and tell ourselves no bad. We desire it, but don't let ourselves have it. It becomes this like taboo thing instead of being like, okay, yeah, I can have that from time to time. And like when my body wants it, it's okay. Like I can give that to my body. I was tired of the yo-yo. I was tired of feeling that sensation of guilt and not letting myself feed myself and not even knowing that I wasn't nourished, even though like I was like, I'm not skinny. I'm not like fading away. But in some ways I was, because I wasn't nourishing myself to the capacity that my body needed. And I wasn't giving my body the space it needed to expand in different ways. Quite literally, like my body wanted to expand a little bit. And so I decided to find a dietitian because I was like someone who specialized in eating disorders. Okay, so how can I find this? Is this something that is going to be feasible for me? Is it going to be extremely triggering? And yeah, spoiler alert, it's been extremely triggering for me to go through this healing process. She's amazing. I have an amazing dietitian. She's fabulous. And she is a no diet dietitian. She is all about intuitive eating. But first, I've had to learn how to eat all over again. So, what are my portion sizes? How much am I eating? How much food am I putting into my body? Am I letting that food heal and nurture me and keeping that food regular? It's been difficult because you go through this process of like really integrating the shadow in a new way because like a lot of the time we go through a process of like, do we even ask ourselves why we hate our bodies when they're round in certain areas? Why do we dislike that so much? And I don't want to say this part. I'm not going to say this part. I will save this for another time. That would be very, very triggering to say. But yeah, like, do we feel the need to remove? I'll use the word remove instead. Remove those parts of our body in the form of starvation instead of nourishing those parts of our body. And if you are like me, I connect very deeply in my healing the goddess. I connect with the energy of the mother and the goddess. And if we look into what the goddess looked like in the ancient portrayals, there was a suppleness, a roundness to her. And that is not to say that women who are naturally skinny are not the form of the goddess. The goddess takes so many different forms, right? So I don't mean to say that in any way, shape, or form either. I think that's beautiful too. I think all bodies are beautiful. But there is something about having that body shape that we are deeply, deeply uncomfortable with when we are navigating disordered patterning and eating. And I think for me, unconsciously, I was shunning that aspect of myself, even though my genetics want me to be a certain way when I'm nourished, right? Want me to be a little softer in certain areas because I am a reflection of that energy that I'm so uncomfortable with, that I'm learning to heal within myself and I'm relearning. And so that has brought me to the dark goddess archetype, the dark feminine, the aspects of the feminine that we are working on healing in the society, but we label as bad, right? And it's almost like that, like, dark feminine archetype that we talk about is like something that like we want to portray as evil and wrong. But if we continue to say that about ourselves instead of sit with it and look at it, it will always, always take dominion over our lives or over my life, right? If I continue to say that these aspects of myself that want to deny the archetype of the mother, that want to completely starve myself and prioritize what society tells me is beautiful, to look this way, look that way, to jump on a video and look a certain way, to be appealing to the eye, that the status quo has told me in this box that I should look like, that will always control me. But it's hard to be like, okay, I'm just gonna fully let that go, right? Because then we start to like really, that's when it really starts to push back, especially when we're in recovery. That is when the eating disordered stuff is the loudest. It's like screaming at you. It's like, look at me, look at me. You need me, right? Yeah. And so that has been a very difficult part, is like that has been my coping mechanism. So when really hard stuff has come up, I feel like because I don't have that anymore, because I have somebody holding me accountable, which has been really important, it's been hard to move through it. So I've spent a lot of time crying. I've spent a lot of time in spaces of self-hatred rather than feeling those spaces of compassion. And I really think it's a reflection of the ways we have denied the love of the female in our society, where we've had to like kind of control it and shape it and mold it to something that has low self-worth, low self-esteem. Because why else would we have so many reflections of that, right? In society, where we have to succumb to diet culture, where we have to appease people, we have to be like, these like dolls. Why does Barbie even exist? Like these things that like, that we can feel and sit with and really welcome in the energy of our own dark goddess archetype that kind of comes with the disorder, where like, okay, there's something that wants to be looked at. Like, how long has the feminine been repressed and shunned and put down, to where at this point where like, the goddess Pele has been coming in quite often. And so she's like this volcano, and this volcano erupts, and it's this beautiful, beautiful anger, um, that we ever let ourselves feel this way about ourselves, but that we've ever been conditioned into feeling and believing our body had to look a certain way, or that we had to present ourselves a certain way, um, that we ever had to starve in order to just kind of get by. Like, I don't want to exist at all, Um, so that has been, where I'm at so far. How am I feeling? I feel a lot better these last couple weeks. I decided that the dietitian thing was going to be a part of, because there's these things that we go through when we're when we're like going through these spiritual journeys, where we're like, okay, like certain things that are on this planet are like, we kind of see them as corrupted or like misaligned. And I definitely see certain things. Like, I don't want to be on pharmaceutical drugs. Like, I don't want to, you know, um, like go into uncharted territory where like a lot of things have, even in the spiritual community, are labeled as bad, where I don't necessarily think a dietitian would be. But I always think like, I'm healer, heal thyself, right? But it's been really hard to come to terms with the fact that I can't heal everything on my own, that my soul has chosen community to heal. And, some things you can heal on your own, yes, but like, there's some things that need nurturing, they need community. And so, in my level of comfort, I've found a team of women to help support me, women that already walked the path, know the way, have that medicine for me to learn it in my own way, right? And to integrate it in my body in its own way. And so I started the dietitian. I went through the therapy part too, because she recommended I go to a therapist, which was really hard for me. I was like, I don't believe in that stuff. I can do it myself. And then I was like, okay, well, what if we soften a little and allow ourselves to like dabble in that? And I got knocked on my ass from something called brain spotting. It just triggered everything for me. I got burnt out right away. And I was like, okay, that's not for me. And decided to find somebody who specializes solely in eating disorder recovery, somebody who's about body liberation, and trusting that just because somebody doesn't have this label of like energy healer, that it doesn't mean that us as humans aren't embodying this healing energy, even if we're going into these more conventional paths, right? Because there's still like, we as the human are awakening. We are remembering in ourselves what our bodies are truly meant to be, what they've always been meant to be. They've always been meant to do, and how they how they're meant to exist. And each body has their own dream of what that reality is. And so these different like occupations that exist, I was like, let me dabble in the fact that these things can be helpful, and that this integration and coming together of me with these other beings can create this shift that I need, this magic of healing, because I'm leaning into it and not judging it. And so this is in part my journey in healing my eating disorder, but it's also in part me leaning into humanity. Even in our darkest moments where things are just so intense right now, it's like, how can I lean in more? How can I soften more? And instead of, keeping the fence around, keeping the boundaries around me and my temple, but also ensuring that I don't put up hedges, right? That I can't not see what's around me. So yeah, this is just part one of what my journey is so far. I mean, if anyone watching this wants me to go deeper into my younger years and that, for sure I could, but I feel like the juiciest part of this is really reconnecting to my feminine nature and the beauty of my body outside of the constraints of starvation and the status quo of what bodies should look like. So yeah, I mean, I'm here. Like, I've definitely struggled. I'm struggling right now. I mean, like, it's hard to have these like things in your mind and then to like see your body change. It's difficult. But if anyone out here is going through the same recovery process, even if it looks different, sounds different, you're not alone. I witness you. I feel you. I know that there are so many of us doing this together, and that it's creating a big wave of of nourishment for all of us as a collective. So sending you so much love. Bye, everybody.